Good evening, everyone. I'm Najmul Nahar, and I'll be your host for today's webinar on Data Integrity 101. As speakers, Mohammad Raihan Chaudhary and Sharmin Afroz are with us. As you know, data integrity is the accuracy and completeness of data throughout its entire life cycle that is essential for ensuring the quality and safety of pharmaceutical products. There are a number of factors that can compromise data integrity, including human error, equipment malfunction, software errors, unauthorized access, and intentional manipulation. So, to protect data integrity, pharmaceutical companies must implement a comprehensive data integrity program, and this program should include a clear definition of data integrity, policies and procedures for managing data, training for employees on data integrity, auditing and monitoring of data integrity. By implementing a comprehensive data integrity program, pharmaceutical companies can help to ensure the quality and safety of their products. In this webinar, we'll discuss basic knowledge of data integrity. We will also discuss regulatory requirements and examples of inspection observation. I hope you will find this webinar informative. Here are some instructions for the audience. Your microphone will remain mute. Please unmute during the discussion or question and answer session and then mute again. Post your questions and comments in the chat box. You are requested to participate in discussion as well as you can share your experience and ideas with us. The audience, I'd like to mention that this webinar presentation is a property of One Quality Solution Limited. The contents of this presentation cannot be changed or modified in any way. One Quality Solution Limited is the sole owner of all the intellectual property rights related to this presentation. This presentation can be shared with others or used for training purpose, provided that credit is given to One Quality Solution Limited. This information provided in these slides is general in nature and cannot be regarded as applicable for assessment of specific data integrity issue. In order to evaluate specific data integrity issue, it is necessary to evaluate relevant data. Users are responsible to use current guideline checking relevant websites. Let me introduce our speakers of today's webinar. Today, we are fortunate to have two distinguished data integrity experts as our speakers, Mohammad Raihan Chaudhary and Sharmin Afroz. Mohammad Raihan Chaudhary serves as the head of quality system and service at One Quality Solutions, bringing with him over 16 years of experience in pharmaceutical quality assurance. Previously, at Novartis, he held the position of Site Data Integrity Lead and GMP Lead Auditor. Additionally, he has also served as a Quality Assurance Manager at Square Pharmaceutical Limited. Sharmin Afroz, our esteemed speaker, holds the position of Senior Assistant Manager of Product Development in the Analytical Research and Development function at Radiant Pharmaceutical Limited. Prior to her current role, she spent approximately 14 years serving in various capacities within quality control at Radiant Pharmaceutical Limited. During her tenure in quality control, she played a crucial role in overseeing the calibration and qualification of laboratory instruments. Moreover, she led the implementation of data integrity requirements, including user access, management, and audit trail review. Sharmin Afroz is a dedicated expert in ensuring data integrity for laboratory instruments. We're confident that expertise of our speakers will greatly enrich our session. Now, I'm inviting Mohammad Raihan Chaudhary to continue the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Najmun. Thank you all for the joining. So I'm directly going to the agenda. So this is our today's topics. We'll discuss basic definitions, ALCOA plus, document control, and user access management and audit trail review. I'll discuss first three topics, and Sharmin Afroz will continue remaining two topics. Next slide, please. So This is the basic uh, data integrity requirements we will discuss in this webinar. It will be helpful for the new employees and the fresh graduates who are interested to learn the data integrity. Also, experienced professionals can refresh their knowledge on data integrity requirements. From these webinars, you will also learn ALCOA Plus principles to apply in your workplace to ensure the data integrity. You will also learn document control, which is very important topics for the data integrity. Also, you will learn the user access management and audit trail, including the regulatory requirements and examples of the observations from the FDA inspections. So let's start the learning. Okay. So first, I want to share a real life examples. In 2020, during my audit in a pharmaceutical company, I observed 17 customer complaint on blue color fibers in the tablets, as shown in the picture of the slide. Definitely, it is not the actual picture of the complaint, but it is the simulations of the complaint for your informations. So, what I'm saying, due to large number of complaints, top management engaged in the investigation. They identified that blue color fiber came from the packaging material of one raw material of the tablet. The fiber was noticed during the granulation by production and IPC personnel. Both the person did not recorded it and not reported as deviation. They thought the fiber is very tiny and not harmful. They also thought the fiber will not be visible on the tablets after film coating. But within 1 month of batch release, they received 17 customer complaints. Can you imagine? As a consequence, the company recalled affected 3 batches, rejected 900 kg affected raw material, initiated DI investigation and risk assessment for the data generated in last 12 months by the alleged production and IPC persons. Finally, the company defined CAPA to ensure DI, including control of raw material contaminations. So what could be done differently to avoid the recall and huge rejection of raw material? So what do you think? You can write in the chat box. Anyone else want to comment? Okay, we can go to the next slide. So what could be done differently? Yes, the production and the IPC persons supposed to ensure the recording of the data without hiding it. So this recall of the 3 batches and rejection of the raw materials could be prevented. So what is it? It is the data integrity, because they did not reported it to avoid the deviations. So this is the data integrity violations. So what is data integrity? In simple words, keeping the data as it is without the changing or hiding is the data integrity. We will discuss the data integrity and related topics in the next slides. So let me explain the data integrity in simple words. In the slides, the definitions taken from the regulatory guidelines, which is more bookish. I like to present in simple words. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, data integrity is keeping the data as is without changing or manipulating the data. So Also, we can say data integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. What do you think? For example, fasting in Ramadan of Muslims. They do not break their fasting even when no one is watching to check if someone is eating or not. It is the data integrity. Also, as mentioned in the slides, data must have some characteristics to ensure the data integrity, which we will discuss in the slides of the ALCOA Plus. Next slide, please. So, why data integrity is important? You know, after the batch release to the market, you have two things: batch records, that is, we say BMR or batch packaging records, and the retained samples. These two things you have in your hands. If you receive complaints, first you need batch records for investigations. In the batch records, you review the data to check whether the complaint is justifiable or not. So if data in the batch records is not reliable or not available, you cannot perform the investigations. Data in the batch records confirms the quality of the batch. Again, if the data in the batch record is not trustworthy or not available, you cannot claim your product is quality product. Data integrity also, and this is the important point, data integrity is a regulatory requirement, and failure to maintain it may result in regulatory action, including suspension of a manufacturing license. To explain this importance, let me um, mention an example. In 2012, the FDA sent a warning letter to Gulf Pharmaceuticals for several data integrity issues at one of their sites. Raw data for essays were deleted after 2 years to clear storage of the to clear the storage space. In addition, the site was warned for using one password for all staff. As a consequence, Gulf was not allowed to export products to the US until the issues were remediated. This impacted the ability of that plant to continue to operate, putting many jobs at risk because the integrity of the data was questioned. That product could not reach patient in the US. This example shows that data integrity violations can have serious consequences, and from these examples, we can understand the importance of data integrity, right? Okay. Next slide, please. So in these slides, we will discuss some basic definitions. First one is data. So data is any piece of information. It can be numbers, text, graphs, audio, pictures, graphs, anything. So any information is data. And raw data is first captured data. When you test or you do something in the production floor or anything in the GMP environment, so first generated data is the raw data. That is first generated data in the logbook, or if you use a computer system, first generated data in your system as an electronic file is the raw data. And the metadata is the data which explains or give informations about other data. In simple words, it is the data of other data. For example, 10 means nothing without kg next to it. 10 is the data. The descriptor kg is the metadata. Another example of metadata is when a doctor records a patient's blood pressures in a clinical trial. The blood pressure reading would be the data, while the doctor's name and the date taken would be the examples of metadata. Okay, so data must be ALCOA Plus compliant to ensure data integrity. So let's discuss ALCOA Plus in next slide. So in this slide, little bit history of the ALCOA Plus. In early 1990s, Sten Ullen and FDA inspectors was involved in the training of the fellow colleagues. He developed the acronym as a means of understanding and evaluating GLP study data for data quality. At that time, I'm not sure, maybe uh, current time also, aluminum kitchen foil made by ALCOA company was widely available, and at that time, this company was popular. So, Stan Wollen used ALCOA as the basis for the following 5 criteria, as mentioned in the slides, which could be applied to any data set. Later, these ALCOA data quality criteria taken by various regulatory authorities like MHRA, WHO, FDA, and have been repurposed as a cornerstone of the data integrity. Okay, so this is the short history of the origin of the ALCOA Plus. Okay, we can go to the next slides. So here is the ALCOA principles. A stands for attributable. It means who generated the data or from where the data is generated. After any data entry, you sign in a document. So your signature is the example of attributable, or the audit trail in the system can be the example of attributable. L for legible. Legible means human readable. Anyone can read easily, clearly. Um, do you familiar with the writing of the handwriting of the doctors? Doctors writing is, I think everyone is familiar with the doctor's handwriting. Till now, um, I did not find any handwriting of the doctors which is very clear and legible. Hmm. But somehow the pharmacy guy, the technician of the dispensary can read the handwriting of the doctors. But it is difficult for us to read the handwriting of the doctors. That is, as per this ALCOA, uh, that is not the legible. So in our pharmaceutical industry, uh, we should write the informations following this legible criteria, so anyone can read the informations, can read the data. C for contemporaneous. So that is also, we can say, same time. After doing something, testing something, uh, you need to write immediately. Hmm. You cannot wait 1 hour or one day to write something, or you cannot uh, write before doing something. Hmm. Backdating is, or back timing is not allowed. Similarly, uh, only you cannot write or document something before completing any analysis or any task. Original means data should be used or presented as it was created for the first time. That is the raw data. First captured data we need to present, we need to store. This is a very important regulatory requirement. Accurate. So we need to ensure accuracy. So data need to be verified uh, as correct by repeatable calculations, algorithm, whatever. Um, we are familiar with the second person check in the pharmaceutical company where the manual operations is running, going on. So in case of manual operations, we need to check by second person. So this is the example of accurate. Okay. So next slide, please. This is ALCOA plus principles. In addition to ALCOA, there are 4 additional principles. First one is enduring, where data need to preserved and retrievable during their lifetime according to the data retention policy. Hmm. So we need to archive the data document up to the retention time of the document or data. And complete. Complete means in the document we need to fill up all the space, all the blank forms. Hmm. We cannot uh, keep any blank space without fill up in the document. So if there is any blank space after completing your data, so blank space need to be crossed out. Next one is available. So data conveniently accessible, or that means stored or archived data need to be accessed at any time. For example, for investigation or for risk assessment purpose, we need previous batch documents or any previous reports. So we need to collect it from the archive and review it for our report purpose or risk assessment purpose. So it should be accessible. And next one is consistent. We need to apply the data integrity principles all time in all documents consistently. Okay. And we can go to the next slide, please. So this is new. This is new information for all. Uh, Apart from the ALCOA plus, now we have another one criterion which is known as ALCOA plus plus. That is traceable. EMA guidance on computerized systems and electronic data in clinical trials included these criteria in their guidance documents. So it means data should be traceable throughout the data life cycle. Okay. So you can say this traceable criteria is covered already in the other principles of the ALCOA plus. So among the pharmaceutical professionals, there is a debate about whether a new criterion is necessary or not. Whatever it is necessary or not, since it is included in the regulatory guidance documents, we should follow it. Okay. So we can go to the next slide. Document control. Yes, this is very important topics to ensure the data integrity. So here we have included an example from the warning letter. So these these example observations shown in the slide, I'm reading for you. On October 24, 2018, our investigator observed torn documents of stability study data, analytical testing sheets, analytical calculations, and release forms that were placed into clear trash bags. Stability study documents for 3 batches were salvaged from the trash and compared to the official and approved record. Out of specification results were among the data found. However, the official results were recorded as within specifications. So, what exactly happened? The guy who responsible for these documentations discarded the uh, OS record. In first place, there was OS in the testing record, but they discarded it and not reported as an official record. In the official record, they manipulated the data and recorded the result within specifications. So it is the violations of the data integrity, right? So in these observations, we can read again. Additionally, it was observed that blank stability study forms were prepared, pre-signed, and approved by the quality unit before recording the test data. Can you imagine? So Tell me, what could be the ideal practice in this case? Anyone can comment in the chat box. So, after seeing these observations, what is your thought? What could be the ideal practice in this case? Anyone can comment in the chat box. Okay, we can go to the next slides. Here I'm presenting another examples from the warning letter. The observations is as mentioned in the slide. Your your quality control analysis routinely recorded raw data such as sample weights into unofficial notebooks. During release testing, our inspection found an analyst maintained two separate notebooks recording different sample weights for the same assay test. Your analyst admitted to altering the sample weights in the approved notebook so that calculation based on those results would meet your release specification. At least batches of Aspire data mucus and sinus soft gel bulk product failed to meet your firm's internal assay specifications for the active ingredients. So, what happened in this case? The persons recorded two data in two logbooks. One is official, one is unofficial. So, unofficial logbooks used only to manipulate the sample weights to meet the assay result. Is it acceptable? What do you think? Yes, yes, that is correct. This is at all not acceptable. Okay, we can see that in the next slide how we can implement. So we can see in the next slide how we can implement document control. In the previous examples, we see several gaps and the data integrity violations. So regarding the document control. So here we are presenting how we can eliminate such document control related data integrity violations. The requirement presented in this slide, you should include in the procedure or in your SOP. And necessary technical control you should uh, implement in your workplace. So first of all, only authorized person should have access to required document management system. For example, in the document issuance or the document archive management systems, only authorized persons should access. Mm. And without authorized persons, no one should access this document. Authorized personnel should issue the batch manufacturing and testing documents and all other forms. Record of issuance must be in the place. So, if only authorized personnel issue the documents and testing documents, there would be no other copies or documents in the workplace. So end user cannot discard any documents in the trash bag. Technical or procedural control should be in place. So end user will be unable to change any content or page of the issue documents and forms. So relevant control you need to implement in your workplace. So end user is unable to change the page or copy the page. If end user can change or copy any page of the issue documents, so they can change the data, they can manipulate the data in your in the documents. Partially or fully executed batch manufacturing and testing documents and forms cannot be discarded in any way, which we um, saw in the previous example that person discarded the documents in the trash bag. Hmm. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. So partially and fully executed batch manufacturing and testing documents never ever cannot be discarded in any way. Unused batch manufacturing and testing documents and forms must be returned to issuer. So sometimes there is a change of production plan or testing plan. So in that case, any unused documents issued to the end user must be returned to the issuer. So then issuer should take uh, actions as per the procedures. They can store it or discard it with proper documentations. User must record data in the issued documents or forms. Unofficial documentation is not acceptable. So in the previous examples, we saw analyst recording in two logbooks. One is official, one is unofficial. So here is clear requirements, clear guidance. Unofficial documentation is not acceptable. Only user can record the data in the issued documents, that is issued BMR, in issued batch packaging record, in the approved and issued analytical forms. They can write the data. Okay. In some organizations, I saw analysts or production personnel writing data on their hands, on the tissue. So, so that is also not acceptable. Uh, Writing data unofficially uh, on the tissue, on the hand of the analyst or the production personnel, it is not also acceptable. Documents issuer must perform reconciliations. So the persons who is responsible for the issuance of the documents must perform a reconciliations. That is, he or she need to change number of issued documents versus received or returned documents. Okay, so he can check whether any documents are returned or not. If not returns, he can knock the end user to return the documents. Okay, so we can go to the next slides. Document must have identifier. That is, every document must have title and identifications and must have version control. Document distribution must be controlled throughout the document life cycle. So there must be a distribution list in the document, or it can be a separate distribution list. As per the distribution list, document must be distributed and previous version must be withdrawn. Okay. User must have access to current version of documents only. So when any documents is prepared or updated, you need to distribute documents as per the distribution list, and if updated, previous version of the documents need to be withdrawn. So in the workplace, users can have the current version of the documents, right? Okay. Discard of documents must be approved by QA. Let's say your retention time of the documents is over, so some documents need to be discarded. So in this case, prepare a list of the documents which need to be discarded, and these list of documents must be approved by your QA. Okay, so by implementing these requirements, you can implement the document control in your workplace. These requirements you should implement through your procedure or SOP, and where applicable, you need to implement technical control. Okay, so by implementing this document control, you can uh, go ahead of the improvement of the data integrity in your sites. So now we can go to the next slides. Now I'm inviting Sharmin Afroz to continue the remaining slides of this webinar.
Thank you, Mr. Rahan. Hello, I am Sharmin Afroz. I look after the analytical instruments and directly involved in data integrity activities in analytical laboratories for about 14 years. Today, I will talk about user access management and audit trail. Let's take a warning letter on poor user access management over computerized system. The firm Missouri Analytical Laboratories did not have appropriate control over computer or related system. They had no unique user account and privilege level for software and Windows operating system. And the analyst had access to delete and overwrite data. Moreover, they found 36 deleted data files in recycle bin. It should not be the ideal practice, right? So, what could be the ideal practice? Write in chat box. Okay, then let's move to the next slide. How to implement user access management. Data integrity starts with user access. Do you agree or not? Type Y for yes and N for no in chat box. Okay, I agree with you. Individual user access must be in place. For system generating audit trail, shared login must not be used. And different access level should be maintained for analyst, operator, supervisor, and administrators. Non-admin users must not have the access to enable or disable the audit trail. And it's a crime and directly the data integrity violation. The system administrator account must not be available for routine use. And also, admin must be independent. A limited number of personnel with no conflict of interest in data should be appointed as system administrator, like your IT or QA. There should be a standard operating procedure for the creation and deletion of user groups and users of your system. And also, records should be maintained. And do you know the creation of admin access must be approved by QA? Because what? Can you write the reason in chat box? Because admin holds the most privilege of the system. Okay. Let's move to the next slide to explore more about it. How to implement user access management. User access privileges must be defined for all computerized systems, like your server system or standalone. No one should have delete option except system admin. Access control should be applied to both operating system and application levels. Activities of admin, including system management activities, must be attributable in audit trail. system should be able to generate a list of users, like the deactivated or activated or available users in the system. And the list should be under periodic review. System should be able to generate a list of successful and unsuccessful login attempts. And it's include user identification, user access role, date and time, and session length. Computerized system should have an inactivity logout. There should be a system policy and password policy in place. I'm asking a question. Who has the delete access in your organization? Can you write it in your chat box? Okay. Have you defined user access privileges for all your equipment? And it should be. Do you perform periodic user access review? Okay, let's move to the next slide. Oh, audit trail review. Here comes audit trail review. FDA found a significant data integrity violation and issued a warning letter to Adamson Analytical Laboratories on 2021. The observation was like that they had no audit trail review enabled in HPLC and DC instruments. I have said earlier, it's a crime. And there was no information like injection, type of injection, date and time, identity of analyst, and most importantly, reason for action taken. The reason. Okay. Can you tell me what would be the ideal practice here? Anyone? Okay. Let's move to the next slide to know more about it. There is another observation regarding audit trail review. That is, before approval of the document, the audit trail is not reviewed. The warning letter showed your laboratory data reviewer did not review the electronic audit trail for your analytical testing. So before approval of the document, during data review, audit trail should also be reviewed. It is the ideal practice, okay? Let's move to the next slide. How to implement audit trail review? The audit trail has turned off. The biggest design flaw of a regulated company is the ability for users to turn the audit trail function on or off. This is a frequent citation in many data integrity warning letters. The easy solution is that the audit trail within an application must be functional from the initial installation, okay? And there must be evidence of enabling the audit trail, and also there must be a periodic verification to ensure that the audit trail remains enabled throughout the data lifecycle. Where a system administrator disables the audit trail, a record of that action itself must be retained in audit trail. and it should not be. I think it's the highest level of crime. Where relevant audit trail functionality does not exist, an alternative control should be applied, like procedural control or technical control. And here, technical control is more powerful than the procedural control. For example, defining the process in an SOP, user logbooks. Alternative control should be proven to be effective also. Audit trail review must be performed before the batch release, okay? Items for review in audit trail should be determined by the risk assessment. It depends on the criticality of the data. You have to determine and define the criticality of the data. In your critical process parameter, from your critical process parameter, CPP, critical quality attribute, CQA, data related to product quality, and patient safety. So, do you review audit trail before batch release? Do you have a risk-based checklist for audit trail review? Or do you review system audit trail periodically? Reply in chat box. System audit trail review should also be performed periodically, like the change of system policy, password policy, and so on. There are two types of audit trail. One is application and another related to the system. Audit trails subject to regular review should include, but are not limited to, the change history of finished product test results, like changes to sample information, identification, changes to critical process parameters, etc. The audit trail would operate silently, recording who did what and when. The only user option would be to configure the audit trail to have a reason for change. At this point, many R&D personnel would ask, we don't work in GMP, so why we have to keep the audit trail? So let me answer the question proactively. The answer is that sometimes R&D data can end up to regulatory submission to FDA, and these data are subject to Part 11 regardless of whether it is regulated or not, as is stated in the answer. Okay, there is a reference. It is 21 CFR 11.3. You can check. I have taken this question from a paper of Bob McDougall. Okay. So it has been 26 years since 21 CFR became effective. Data integrity regulations and guidance published over the last 6-7 years, but still data integrity problem is the #1 problem of pharmaceuticals. If regulated organizations and individuals had read and followed data integrity regulation and guidance, it would not be the major problem of pharmaceuticals. We are at the end of our presentation. It's been a pleasure being with all of you today. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I am asking Ms. Nazmoon on behalf of One Quality Solutions to wrap up today's webinar, and thanks to One Quality Solutions for the opportunity to learn from each other and grow together. Thank you all. And if you have any question, you can write in chat box.
Thank you so much for your wonderful speech, and thank you all for joining this webinar. Let's summarize today's webinar. Data integrity is to keep the original data as is, ensuring ALCOA Plus. Only authorized persons shall access the documents or forms for issuance which will be traceable. End users are not able to change content or page of issued documents or forms. All users must have individual user access in computerized system. Audit trail review must be performed before batch release. So you have learned key definitions of data integrity, what data integrity is, and why it is important. Definitions and examples of ALCOA Plus to apply in your workplace. Requirements of document control, user access management, and auditor review. You can apply this knowledge to ensure data integrity in your workplace. So here are the links of regulatory guidelines and resources materials that are given in the slide. You can check the guidelines for more details. Now it's time for question and answer session. You can ask your questions or write questions in the chat box.
Hello. We are sorry. We enable the microphone, so you can ask questions. Now unmute the microphone. So we see some questions in the chat box. Um, so okay. We have also some questions received in our page, and in we have some questions in the chat box, right? So Shuli Dash asked the question: in production, which instructions need user access control? I mean, which instruments? Which instruments need user access, right? So the equipments in the production floor which needs login to operate the equipment must have user access. Okay, if the equipment needs login to operate it, so it must be compliant with user access management. Okay, next
Okay.
question.
I am taking the next question for
Okay.
answering. The question is it mandatory to implement 21 CFR Part 11 to all production equipments? You have to perform a risk assessment first. Then you have to define the critical process parameter and CQA. And here, from the guideline, data integrity and compliance with JAC CGMP, question and answer guidance from the industry by FDA, published in December 2018. And on 7th point, it is written that all production and control records, which includes audit trail, must be reviewed and approved by the quality unit. So your production instruments and production data are also under monitoring and under control.
Okay, Sharmin, I think next question is also for you.
What is the next question?
Question asked by Fazle Rabbi. Are you reviewing the audit trail as part of process acceptance and performing periodic reviews?
Oh, of course. There is two type of audit travel reviews. It is like application related and system related. Like application related auditors must be reviewed before the batch release, and it is a regulatory requirement. And you have to perform system audit under a frequency, and it should be reviewed periodically. And we are doing that. Any other question? Okay.
So, anyone else? So, if you have questions, you can ask. We have still 1 minute. I think there is no more questions. The questions in the screen that we received in our page, we can post in the in our LinkedIn page later. Okay. Najmul, you can go to the next slide. I think we can close the webinar because now almost 10 p.m. We should close the webinar.
Okay, thank you all for joining the webinar. Your participation in the discussion and questions session made this webinar interesting and interactive. You will receive a link to the webinar assessment in your email. Please complete the assessment by 23 May. After you have completed the assessment, you will receive your certificate of attendance within 2 weeks. We'll also share the slides and the question and answer with you. If you have any questions, please email us. We are now closing the webinar. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you all. Thank you all for joining.